everyone, Scott here with a photo tip for you. So a few days ago on my blog I posted a before and after picture where I'd adjusted the composition in post-production. Not something you would normally want to do, but in some occasions it can be done and the results are better than your original image. So I took this picture here years ago, somewhere in this region outside of Taipei, and yeah, I really like basically everything that I have here. You know, the misty mountains. I've obviously done some post-processing adjustments to it. I like the silhouette of the boat. The only thing is this boat's really crowded over toward the left edge of the picture, and it would be much better if I could move it right over here. Well, thankfully in this image there's a nice separation between the land and the ocean. And, you know, with a little masking and some creative clone and stamp work, we can do that. And so I thought I'd show you the steps that I did. At least I'll try to recreate what I did for the blog post a couple of days ago, and we'll see how it goes. So my layering tool of choice is Perfect Photo Suite from ON1. So I'm going to fire this up and launch it over into the Photo Suite. You can use any other layering tool. You know, obviously Photoshop's a great choice. GIMP if you're into free open source, and we'll just walk through the steps here. So the very first thing I want to do is duplicate this layer. So we'll do that here. Now there's a lot of approaches to this. I could clone and stamp the ocean from here and then wipe away the boat. I could try to, you know, clone this entire section over here. What I want to do is try to maintain the lighting that's here. So the sun was setting down over on this side, and you know, there's a little bit of glimmers in the water, and this section of the river was darker. So I want to try to keep some of that. So the approach I'm going to use is to take the bottom layer and slide it down some so that this water will start covering the boat. And I'll probably need to repeat this 2 or 3 times to get a nice smooth looking waterfront over on this side. So let's begin that process. Alright, so I'm going to first reduce the opacity of my top layer just to 50% or so I can see what's going on. Select my lower layer, and I want to move this layer around. So I'll grab my transform tool, and I'm just using the arrow key, and you can see what's going on. So I'm just starting to move down this lower layer until I get to a point where I've got, you know, clean ocean covering most of the boat. I'll have this little bit here, so I'll probably have to repeat this a couple of times. Once I have that, apply that, I'll go back up to my top layer. I'll bring the opacity back up, grab a masking brush, start to paint out, and just so I can get a smooth transition into the water that I'm going to keep, I'll lower the opacity down. Maybe I'll play around at 50, maybe 40%. It's around there's good enough. And just start to paint some of this out. That was actually already a bad brush stroke. Let me move down more and just start to paint this out. And you can see where this is the top of the boat again in that lower layer. And do like that. Now I'm going to do it again and again to eliminate the boat. And it's okay that I'm getting this bottom part. We're going to repeat this process again and again. And again, so just, you know, wipe this out entirely. And the only reason I'm using the lower opacity is just so that I get a good blend when I get over into these edges here. You know, so something like that. I mean, I'll keep it briefer for the video here, and you can clean this up as much as you need. That's looking fine. I'm going to now take this layer, my bottom layer, duplicate it again. So I'm going to want to do the same, moving it down. And at this point, I'll actually merge my top layer down into my bottom layer. So I'm going to repeat this a few times until I've eliminated this boat here. And all I have is ocean or river, and I'll have a bottom layer that still has my original boat. Alright, I've repeated this a second time, and at the stage now where I'm going to merge this down onto my top layer here. And I've made a copy of the bottom layer again, so I have the original boat that will mask in elsewhere. This is looking a little a little flat and a little harsh on the transition. So this is an area you can use the clone tool to help out. The trick is using a lower opacity. Don't just use 100%. Bring it down to, I like to work at a lower opacity and come up as I need to. So I'm going to option click in an area and then just, kind of feather that in. Even 20%, or sorry, 36% is looking a little harsh. Bring it down even further. And again, the boat's going to end up landing right over here, but just to smooth that out a little bit, you get the idea. I could repeat this and get it nice and tight and smooth. Or you could do this afterward in Aperture or in Lightroom. So now let's bring the boat back into the picture. So I'm going to bring down the opacity on my top layer so I can see what's going on the bottom. And I want to bring this boat back up to a good spot in the picture. So here's my boat, and somewhere around here. Again, this is the actual edge of the full frame. Let's go around here, just bringing it in a tiny bit. That's probably going to look pretty good. So let me apply that back onto the top layer, and this is where you just start masking in the boat. So in this case, I'll just start going through here, bringing the boat back in. And again, I've got a low opacity, so when I go through the water and bring in some of the shadows, that's good. I definitely want to bring in the full part of the boat. And I've got enough of it here now that I can bring my top layer's opacity all the way back up. So we're starting to get a look at where it actually sits in the picture. So I'm going to be a little sloppy with the mask here and getting all the details. I want to get that anchor, whatever that might be, in there. Bring in more of the shadows that were cast by the boat. There was this interesting line that came through here, and I'm just clicking through, and you can see that there's some haloing around here. We will need to go and clean that up as well. And I'm hitting the edge of my photo here, so I'm going to use the X key to toggle that, bring it back in. So I'm painting back in that section of the mask. And this is where you start to need to zoom in. I'm using a very low res picture here so that things are snappy for the video. But as you get in close, you can start to take care of bringing in those halos. And I'm going to toggle back and forth between painting in and painting out. I could also explore using the perfect brush, which will be edge detection. But again, you get the notion here. So now I'm going to get through the rest of this boat and really bring the deep, dark silhouette into the picture here. One more time through, maybe. Yep, that's looking pretty good. So you get the idea. Zoom back out. So that's where we are. We started off with this image, and we end up with this one. A much stronger composition, and in this case, pretty simple. There wasn't a lot of background noise, a lot of things to drag around. So depending on the photo you have, if you couldn't capture the composition exactly how you wanted it, as I recall, I was literally driving by in a vehicle and snapped this picture. In those cases, you can't always sit down, set up, and get your composition exactly right. Look for creative ways to use layers and post-processing to fix up the composition. That's it for this time. Thanks for listening.